Now, during the debate, there was a debate between Carly Fiorina and Donald Trump. That's what it's supposed to be about, right? And they were talking about their track records. That makes sense because you need the experience if you're going to be president. And they're both bragging about how great they are in business and that that's the reason they should be elected. Well, let's look at Carly Fiorina's record and see if that's true. First, I want to give you Donald Trump's attack against her.
The head of the Yale Business School, Jeffrey Sonnenfeld, wrote a paper recently, one of the worst tenures for a CEO that he has ever seen, ranked one of the top 20 in the history of business. The company is a disaster and continues to be a disaster. They still haven't recovered. In fact, today on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, they fired another 25 or 30,000 people, saying we still haven't recovered from the catastrophe. When Carly says the revenues went up, that's because she bought Compaq. It was a terrible deal, and it really led to the destruction of the company. Now, one other company before that was Lucent. Carly was at Lucent before that. And Lucent turned out to be a catastrophe also. So I only say this, she can't run any of my companies. That I can tell you.
Zinger at the end there. Okay, now, I'm going to give you her response, and I'm going to give you the facts. So we have the facts on her reign at Hewlett Packard. She was a CEO there from roughly 1999 to 2005. She was fired. She will acknowledge that here. I'll tell you why she was fired later, but first, her defense.
Donald Trump says you, quote, ran HP into the ground. You laid off tens of thousands of people. You got viciously fired. For voters looking to somebody with private sector experience to create American jobs, why should they pick you and not Donald Trump?
I led Hewlett Packard through a very difficult time, the worst technology recession in 25 years. The NASDAQ stock index fell 80%. It took 15 years for the stock index to recover. We had very strong competitors who literally went out of business and lost all of their jobs in the process. Despite those difficult times, we doubled the size of the company. We quadrupled its top line growth rate. We quadrupled its cash flow. We tripled its rate of innovation. Yes, we had to make tough choices. And in doing so, we saved 80,000 jobs, went on to grow to 160,000 jobs, and now Hewlett Packard is almost 300,000 jobs. We went from lagging behind to leading in every product category and every market segment. We must lead in this nation again, and some tough calls are going to be required. But as for the firing, I have been very honest about this from the day it happened. When you challenge the status quo, you make enemies. I made a few.
So what's the verdict on this? Who's telling the truth and who's lying? Believe it or not, Donald Trump is telling the truth here, and Carly Fiorina is not, look, flat out lying about a lot of her record, and the rest of it is completely misleading. For example, she talks about, oh my God, we quadrupled, so many of these factors that we were weighing here, cash flow, revenue, etc. Now, they bought Compaq, which did turn out to be disastrous, as I'm about to tell you. So if you buy a huge company, yes, your revenue goes up. In one of the metrics that she was using, USA Today did an analysis, and the reason she says it quadrupled is because she took only 1 quarter of 1999 and compared it to the whole year of 2005. Yeah, that's 1 quarter versus 4 quarters. Of course! That is to call that misleading is enormously kind. That's basically a lie. That's not a year-to-year comparison. That's a quarter to 4 quarters comparison. Of course it would quadruple. It's 4 times as much. All right, so now, Trump mentioned Jeffrey Sonnenfeld, who's a Yale professor in management. Is that true, what he said about Carly Fiorina? Oh, yeah. He said, you couldn't pick a worse non-imprisoned CEO to be your standard bearer. Damn. Is it true that she laid off a lot of people at Hewlett Packard? Yes, the company laid off 30,000 employees under her leadership. Now, at this point, a lot of Republicans would be like, oh, well, she's tough. Yeah, way to fire people. Yes, right? And look, any business person can make a reasonable argument, depending on the circumstances, on whether you have to do layoffs or not. Now, it doesn't look well, but maybe if it helped the company grow and it saved jobs in the long run, that would be the argument that she would make and others would make. So did it do that? The answer is a resounding no. Hell no. So here's what happened under her tenure. HP's stock dropped more than 55% during Fiorina's tenure as chief executive. There's a word for that. It's called disaster. She fired all those people. She bought Compaq. Turned out to be a really bad decision. Yes, of course, when you buy a giant company, your revenue goes up, but that doesn't mean your profits go up. And the market punished the company for it to lose more than half its value in the 6 years that you ran it. There's really no other word for it other than disaster. She did run it into the ground. That's a fact. Those stock prices are indisputable. Okay, and by the way, stock prices means the value of the company. And of course, it has ramifications. How much cash do they have to make future investments? Can they grow, et cetera? So now, because of that, obviously, she must have been punished. I mean, these executives, it's a free marketplace, right? If you do well, you get rewarded greatly. But if you do poorly, obviously, you're not going to get that same kind of paycheck. Wrong. We don't live in a capitalist world. No. These guys pretend to be in favor of capitalism. They're not in favor. They're in favor of socialism for the rich. So what happened to Fiorina? She left with a $21 million golden parachute of a $100 million in pay for her 6 years in charge. So for losing more than half the value of the company, she got paid $100 million. Isn't that unbelievable? They're robbing us blind, man. If you're a shareholder of Hewlett Packard, you got robbed while they told you a pretty story about capitalism and the free markets, right? But not only did she get the $100 million, what really gets under my skin, and probably a lot of yours, she gets fired. She gets $21 million for getting fired. You remember the last time you were fired and they gave you $21 million because you fucked up so badly? Can you imagine you're at any company, at any level? You cost your company half their value, billions upon billions of dollars. They're like, oh, Bob, I can't believe you destroyed our company. Here's $21 million. No. These executives, man, they stack the board. They do. The idea that she challenged the status quo as a CEO of Hewlett Packard, what a joke. She was incredibly conventional. She made all the wrong decisions, and she got rewarded anyway. That's exactly what people are mad about. So now, does everybody agree to that? Well, after she was fired, CBS, USA Today, and CNBC each called her one of the worst tech CEOs of all time. She's such an embarrassment. They have her in here so they can say, oh, we have a female candidate. Oh, look at that. A female candidate who, what does she do? Constantly criticizes females, right? Which woman would you put on the $10 bill? She's the only one to say, no women. Women? No. I'm here to spit on women. And I get to do it because I have the immunity card because I'm a woman. And her other job is to attack Hillary Clinton nonstop, right? So understand what this is about. And did she earn her way there? No. She got promoted up through all of her failures, through all of those different companies. And by the way, since she ran Hewlett Packard, CEOs often go around and around and easily get another job. She hasn't been able to get any other job. Now, how about the guy who fired her? This is what she said during the debate.
It's also true that the man that led my firing, Tom Perkins, just took out a full-page ad in the New York Times to say he was wrong, I was right, I was a terrific CEO, the board was dysfunctional, and he thinks I will make a magnificent president of the United States.
Wow, that does sound like a really strong change of mind and endorsement that the guy spent a lot of money to take out an ad in the New York Times. That costs a ton of money. Wow. Now let's go to the Huffington Post for reality. Fiorina addressed her controversial business record during Wednesday night's debate, saying that a man who'd led her firing, Tom Perkins, had recently taken out a New York Times ad that said, according to her, I was a terrific CEO, the board was dysfunctional, as you guys just heard. The ad was actually taken out by a super PAC backing Fiorina. So somehow they got Tom Perkins to say some nice things about it. He didn't put up his own money. You crazy? No, she put up the money. She ran the ad calling herself a terrific CEO. Wow. Bold leadership. And by the way, it wasn't just during her business tenure that she was a disaster. Remember, in 2010, she ran for a Senate seat in California, got clobbered. Then she had a lot of debt. Can you sense a theme here? You know that even though she's worth $50 million, and she's only worth the $50 million because of all the money Hewlett Packard gave her for her failure, she didn't pay all those people she owed. All the staffers, all the contractors, all those people that she owed money, she didn't pay them until she decided to run for president. Many, many, many years later. She wasn't ever going to pay them. You think these Republicans believe in the marketplace? No, they believe in robbing you blind. And one of her former aides who worked on her political campaign at the time said, quote, "I'd rather go to Iraq than work for Carly Fiorina again." So if you want to know what Carly Fiorina's real track record is and how she actually did it as an executive, that's the real record. Those are the facts.